So, Uncle Mike, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your good moment of the week? Because this one's extra special.
It's many years in the making. So my son committed to a university this week. So he's been playing basketball and doing hard with his work over the years. His last year of school, he made the honor roll. So he's getting Ontario academic money, which is good.
Nice.
And then to add to that, he got recruited by a school called Redeemer University, and it's in Hamilton. Right, so
Nice.
he's staying in Ontario, which
It's
is
nice, close to home.
yeah, right. There's certain benefits to that, and he's going to a place where he thinks he fits. It has his course, which is the big thing for him. I know over the years, people we looked in the U.S. and he's played in the U.S. and played in Canada and all that kind of stuff, but he never really had a preference of where he really needed to go or really wanted to go. He just wanted to go to a place that had his course and he would get to learn on the court as well. So wow. That he committed. They pushed it out in social media last week, seeing his picture there with the basketball and everything. It's a proud moment for me and his mom. And, I'm sure for him, they play it off as like, oh, I'm over it already. But, I'm sure he's pretty happy.
And I've got to say, normally you've got a glow and a twinkle in your eye.
I was just going to say the same
extra,
thing.
There's a little extra layer. You're just absolutely shining right now. I'm like,
it's like squinty sparkles and just, yeah.
I have to include this as well because it was a good week because my daughter got her marks for the quadmester that she's in. So the 2 courses that she had taken, and her lowest mark was 90.
Oh.
Wow.
Hey.
Roz better watch out.
Yeah. Like Roz is coming for you.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it.
So those things, it was your kids make you proud no matter what they do. Last week they made me proud, That's the good thing for the week.
Welcome to the Technically Diverse Podcast featuring the Quadcast crew.
So welcome to episode 7 of the Technically Diverse Podcast. I am your host, Jordan, and I am joined by the members of the Quadcast crew, my co-host, and our resident adrenaline junkie, Ruby, aka Amsako.
Hi from New Delhi.
Oh yes, on site.
And behind the scenes and working his magic is Mike. Remember, if it ain't Mike, it ain't right.
Hey, hi from Mississauga.
And keeping us in line and doling out our law and order is our producer, Roz, aka Peaches.
Hi, from Niagara Falls.
So today we are joined by a special guest. He's a former pro basketball player, an Olympian, a TV analyst for Sportsnet and NBA TV. He's a color commentator for TSN 1050, and he's generally regarded as one of the coolest guys in Canadian sports, Mr. Sherman Hamilton. Thanks for joining us today, Sherman.
Thanks for having me. That's quite an intro. I hope I live up to it.
Oh, yeah, buddy. And Sherman, I got to say, I have been salivating at the chance to interview you because I met you 11 years ago. And, the first time we met, you were so calm, cool, and collected. And I struggled because, you're this larger than life, personality that I've seen on TV playing basketball, and you wouldn't let on to who you were when I met you. I was racking my brain when I saw you, and I was struggling. I'm like, who is this guy? I'm like, is he an uncle from a barbecue that I've been to in the past? Did he do real estate with my dad? I'm like, he looks so familiar. And I remember you were sitting across the chair from me, and you were just, your legs were all chilled and you were so relaxed, like cool as a cucumber, and you wouldn't let on, and you finally eventually like, oh yeah, I used to play pro ball, but yeah, like you're just so cool. So I've been waiting to interview you again. I know you probably don't remember, so I will jog your memory. It was at a certain BMW dealership in Toronto, and I hooked you up with a rental car because I work for the rental car company. But yeah, you're super cool, and I hope things went well with that car repair because I didn't see you after that. But I know BMWs can be a little tricky, but
everything's fine, and I usually don't when people say they think they know me from somewhere, I usually don't say anything and just have them rack their brain and feel uncomfortable. So you're welcome.
Hey, I could have kept you in suspense today too, right? Because I could have been like, oh, you know, I knew you from somewhere like way back and kept it going. But, you know, I'm a little nicer of a guy. So,
Yeah, no, I heard that one before too. So I'm good.
Well, I do know you from somewhere, and you know, I know you're that type of guy. I know you are the laid back, cool guy, doesn't put himself out there, you know, and just seeing you on TV truthfully racks my brain at times.
Mike, do you by chance know him from Malton?
Of
By
course. Sherman is a Malton OG, man. He goes way back.
Yes,
Those high school you know, when we played against each other, you know, he actually used to play against my brother, right? So in those wild Westwood Morningstar games, those were the
absolutely good times. So the backdrop is Mike and I go way back, actually, way back in some real interesting times back in Malton, where it was we were a village called Malton.
Yeah.
And we're literally a village. I mean, everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
All your competitions were internal against guys you knew all the time. Mm-hmm. And so he went to the rival school, but it's funny because in the summer times, we'd all play against and with each other. But when it was season, we were at war all the time. And those battles were unbelievably fun to play for sure.
Those crowds, those days, you know, I felt like that was pro. Like you'd be on the court, and you know, those are the days where people getting cans and hitting the bleachers. Like it was great. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking of it now. You know.
Yeah, and those great times. That basketball and those, you know, especially when you think about the time we're living in and how we're so distanced. I mean, back then it was crammed. The gyms were crammed. The bleachers were jammed. People were standing. It was just crazy, but. Great memories, as Mike was saying, for sure.
Yeah, man. Everything was tight. Even the uniforms were tight back then.
So
true. They were baggy? I thought they'd be baggy back then.
Yeah, we bought our own shorts, I remember, because they were so tight. I have some pictures, but you know.
No, you save those ones. You in tight shorts. I don't know if I'm ready for that just yet. So Sherm, what was it like to go from that tight-knit community like Malton, where you like know everybody, to like going to play NCAA like in Virginia, like, you know, certainly far away, and you know, things with the United States now are divisive. I could only imagine back then like what things might have been like. Could you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, it was a pretty big transition when you think about it. I mean, fortunately for me, during my high school days, I got a chance to experience a little bit of travel outside of Canada. So, you know, getting accustomed to other cultures was something that I just got introduced to prior to heading to the States. And the guy Mike and I know very well, and still is a good friend of mine today, and I'm sure he's a good friend of Mike's, Bobby Allen, who was kind of the trailblazer of basketball in Malton for us. And he had already gone to the States. And when he came back, because he was a couple years ahead of me, I'd always pick his brain and try to figure out, you know, what it was like playing in the States, because, you know, I was on that track. Yeah. And he was so gracious with the information, and still to this day, he's a very good friend of mine. And so I got a little bit of intel on what to expect, but, you know, it's kind of like anything else. You never really know until you know, and you know when you're in it. And it was a bit of a culture shock. It was, you know, it's interesting because coming from Canada, you know, there's players that are good and there's athletes that are good. But when you go to the States and you multiply that number by 10, and on every corner there's an athlete just as athletic as you and just as good as you, then you see why the competition level is so high. And when you get to the States, it's not about, you know, competing every other day. It's every single moment you're competing. So I was versed with that based on living in Malton and having to play against Morningstar and playing on the block. But it you know, there's nothing like taking your game and that competitive level to another stage. And then the culture shock of living in a country that, you know, as much as we have our similarities, we're very different. And the mentality and the emotion that the States have is very different. So there were some adjustments, but I mean, for me, fortunately, I've been able to roll with the punches. And whenever I've entered an environment that was unfamiliar, I've been able to kind of just get a lay of the land and figure out how either assimilate or correct what I need to correct to be able to maintain it in that environment.
Nice. So definitely being adaptable is one of your better traits, you'd say.
Oh, no question about it. And you know, we're in a situation, and I keep coming back to now because we all have to adapt. We all have to adjust and move forward and figure out ways to be the best we can be with everything that's uncertain around us. So, you know, I'm very, very blessed that I was able to have a lot of experiences that forced me and allowed me to adapt and adjust and have some level of success that kind of helped build the confidence in me moving forward for every other stop in my life that I needed to apply those qualities to.
So you talked about Malton and, you know, that competition, you know, NCAA. You know, when you turned pro, what was that first feeling like when you were handed a paycheck for doing something that you love? Like, what was that like when, like, what was like when you first got the check and you're like, oh my God, I'm getting paid for this? Like, what was that like?
Well, it wasn't the aha moment that I thought it would be, to be honest with you, because you're working hard for that money. And you know, at the end of the day, I get it. I played a game and I got paid to play a game. But you know, those games are one thing. It's all the hours that go into getting to that game, to getting to that contract, to getting to that team. It's a lot of work. And you know, I had to put in a lot of work to maintain a professional career. So, you know, getting that contract and getting that money in that first paycheck was one of those, okay, I'm doing this professionally, but it wasn't this skies opening up and all of a sudden now the world makes sense to me. It's like, okay, I got to continue to grind to get that next paycheck. And that's always been my mentality.
Wow. Ruby, I know you have a question. You're itching.
So, you know, putting in all that time and effort, like, do you look back and think of anything you felt you may have sacrificed to get to where you had to get to?
Yeah, there's a lot of sacrifices. And ultimately, if you're going after something in life, you're going to have to sacrifice things if you really want to achieve at a high level. And it's one of those things that you have to make a conscious decision. And sometimes it's tough to neglect things and people in your life in order to accomplish your goals. But the time frame and the window of a professional athlete is so small in comparison to their life that you have to decide and be concrete in your decision when you make that decision. So yeah, I sacrificed, you know, time with friends, with family. I sacrificed, you know, my own personal enjoyment of hanging out or maybe partying more. But there's a lot of things that I benefited from those sacrifices. I mean, you know, the discipline it takes to walk away from those opportunities, to have fun, to be in a gym by yourself, or to be in a weight room working out when all your friends and people you care about are doing things that you'd want to enjoy as well. You know, that can be a bit draining. But again, ultimately, if you have a goal, and for me, I get very tunnel vision when I set a goal for myself, and sometimes it can be a bit harsh the way I go about it. But I know, you know, in my mind and in my existence, how I find success. And sometimes I just have to take that route. But there's a lot of sacrifices, and most of them are personal, you know, in terms of relationships, in terms of families and friends. But I can't say that I regret it. Basketball has been great to me. I've experienced things beyond the court that I probably would have never experienced if I didn't make those sacrifices. And I continue to benefit from those sacrifices till this day. So I gotta say it's difficult, but in my estimation, it was worth it.
Wow.
Awesome.
Wow. That was an incredible answer.
That's really, that's insightful. And I think it's something that the kids need to know, you know, like it or not, you are a role model. I can take that personally because with my son, from the time he was young, he's known you and from calling you the juice man. Right? He always used to give him juice. When we go to the games, you know, Sherman had a juice. It might even been once or twice, but when Aiden was young, he's called Sherman the juice man. We're going to go see the juice man today, you know. So you know,
Jonathan might be upset with that.
I know. For you guys that don't know who he's talking about, it's another Malton OG, Jonathan Shaw, the juice man.
The juice man.
Yeah, so he's a pretty known, well-known DJ out there, right? So
absolutely.
But yeah, so you know, I can take one instance where, you know, you have put in the work. He's got to see a little bit more of you because knowing you personally, but that something that should be shown and should be known, because it does take a lot of work for you to get there, professionally as a player and professionally what you're doing after you're a player.
Absolutely. And, I think in general in society, and I never really like to generalize, but when I kind of look at the landscape, I see when we talk about people, we talk about the spotlight, not the shadows.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
it's a very different reality. And a lot of times I find that, especially our kids nowadays, they look at the spotlight a lot and they want what's in the spotlight. There's nothing wrong with that. But nobody's explaining to them, or there's not a consistent messaging out there about the shadows and what happens in the shadows to have that spotlight eventually. And that's something that, is kind of, to me, getting lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
Our kids need to know it's in this microwave society, there's work that's done behind the scenes to be able to create these opportunities and to allow us to have these things in life. And I think sometimes that gets overlooked, and it's unfortunate. And it's tough to message that to your kids when we want to do better for our kids and give our kids more opportunities. But when we look at the way we came up and had to kind of grind it out, can we really get them to that point where they understand how difficult it is to achieve certain successes in life? I don't know if that's possible anymore.
The examples, Ruby, you were going to say something?
Yeah, because it just brings up an interesting thought. Is in your time when you were striving to become the best basketball player, be an athlete, but in today's time, it's being an athlete to get to the followers, to get to the media attention. And, it's a different kind of mindset to prepare as an athlete, but then to be that visual spokesperson, that celebrity in a sense. But then I'm just curious to know from your perspective, like, especially the athletes that focus on the game, get to the peak of their game, but then are also put on this pedestal of celebrity, and how they're able to kind of maneuver that and what that does to their ability to kind of be true to the game, and then also have to kind of be a spokesperson essentially, which they probably didn't prepare for or think about.
Yeah, I would say that nowadays everybody's marketed as a brand, regardless of what you're doing. I mean, the platforms are out there on social media for everybody to have equal access to marketing themselves. If you have a talent,
it's a different game now.
Absolutely,
it's a different game.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And it's interesting because, I mean, there's a lot of confusion in that whole process, when trying to decipher, okay, what's real and what's not real, because there's a lot of images and stories being told that might not be backed up with real fact and real truth in terms of what they've done. Having said that, I feel like the athlete has to use that platform, because at the end of the day, an athlete's going to have the platform. They're going to get the eyes regardless because of what they do. So it's an added incentive to have a platform, whether it be social media, whatever it is, to sell that brand even more. The problem is you can get caught in terms of working too hard on the brand and the platform and not working hard enough on the game and the substance. And then there's an imbalance in terms of return. So I just think that it's a different era. It's an interesting era. I think it's a thriving era, but you really got to be very careful about, what we consider to be leaders and what we consider to be, I think, people that we look at as heroes and think people that we put on pedestals, because misinformation has never been at its highest with social media. And I think that's something we have to be very, very cognizant of.
I'm glad you said that, because that's a topic that we've covered on this podcast, specifically misinformation and some of the damage that it can have. And in your comments there too, it reminds me of an interview that I saw DeMar doing with Jimmy Kimmel, where he was talking about Westbrook and saying how, the same thing, like a lot of players focus on their brand and doing those off-court activities, their fashion and whatnot, but they're not in the gym focusing on the game. And he was saying that, when Russell Westbrook comes for you at the time, he's having an MVP season. He's like, when those guys come to play, they're coming for your neck. Like they don't care about what you did off court. They don't care about how many followers you have. Like, it's about the game. It's about the floor. And you better be ready. Otherwise you're going to basically, get buckets put up on you.
Yeah. And to me, that's more of an old school mentality, right? You deal with what you have to deal with on the court, because that's what you get paid to do. And then if you have more time, you deal with the other stuff. And I think sometimes it gets reversed. And it's a mentality. It's, it's a generational thing. You think about, the idea of the last 20 years. I mean, you can't tell a young person over the last 20 years that social media isn't the biggest thing that ever happened in the history of this planet, right? Because it's impacted their lives in ways that, we can see it differently, but they only see it one way. And that's something that, through history, we see it repeated with something. The computer came around during our time, and it was one of those things that we were like, oh my goodness, this is the biggest thing. But really, there's other things that happened before. So, every generation gets caught in something. But I think what this has really done in terms of social media, it's really kind of, in some people's minds, it's balanced the playing field. So the ability to disseminate information can come from anybody. It doesn't have to be verified. It doesn't have to be real. It doesn't have to be true. It can just be put out there and millions of people have access to it. So I think when you go back to players and working on their game, it's the idea of, I do, what I love to do, what I get paid to do. And that's going to be my platform. That's going to be what puts me out there. And that's what people are going to look at me and say, is he a good player or is he not a good player? When you add the other layers, I think that's just marketing and branding, and there's nothing wrong with it. I just think we got to be very careful about who we endorse and who we don't endorse, so to speak.
So true. I really agree with you about the social media and, getting down to what is real and it's not real. I know with the club that I have and the kids going through this COVID year trying to get recruited, coaches are recruiting based on what they see on social media and what kind of information the kids can put out there to make it a, even field, like what you said. I know some kids that never even met the coach, but they've been able to get recruited based on what they can post and what they can show. The coaches do dig down and try to get the real information. So in this case, it's a game. They want to see the game and get all that, but it's hard. And I don't know if this time, if this time happened when we didn't have the technology, it'd be such a different thing.
No, you're right. And it's interesting because if you think about it, it is the best way of branding yourself, especially now. I mean, the games aren't what they used to be. The practice availability is not there. Coaches can't travel to see good kids. And that whole element of recruiting has been flipped on its head now. And players have to be creative in terms of ways that they get themselves out there. And guess what? Now the player that might have been down here on the chart, based on social media and what you can put out there, you might be able to creep up a little bit and get more interest. So it's an interesting time, and there might be a lot of scholarships rescinded at some point in the next few years. But I can't, I can never blame a kid for trying to get the most out of what they can get. I think that's important, and it's a more important skill set to learn in life in general. Situations aren't going to be the way you want it to be all the time, but whatever is there, can you capitalize and maximize that opportunity to its fullest? We're getting tested with that right now.
And speaking of getting tested, that's a really good
buzzword
right now.
Where are you going with that?
You were inside the bubble. Tell us about the bubble. Like, did you try Jimmy Butler's coffee? Like, what did you do for fun in there? Like, what was the bubble experience like from your angle?
Well, first of all, they didn't allow anybody into the bubble. All broadcasters had to broadcast from wherever their location was in their state or their country, which was a good thing. I think, but all accounts from in the bubble was that the NBA did an amazing job in terms of what they were able to secure in terms of health and safety and protocol and get everybody to kind of fall in line. And it was, when you look at the four major sports, it was the most successful atmosphere for professional sports during that time of COVID. And you really got to tip your hat to the NBA. Now, would I have gone to the bubble? Sure. If they had asked me to go, I probably would have gone. But I think looking back and having to call those games from here, it really had to forced me to get into a different mind frame as a broadcaster, because that connectivity wasn't there anymore, of being able to just be on the court before the game and talk to a player, talk to a coach, talk to management. All of that was gone. Traveling on the plane and all that stuff was gone. So you really had to find ways to still be connected and still disseminate information that was relevant. So, you know, like everybody else, you know, we all had to adjust and make some decisions to figure out ways to navigate whatever career we're involved in. And that was a bit difficult, but I thought the bubble was a complete success for the NBA in general. And I thought they led all the 4 major sports in terms of setting an example of how to do it in terms of a pandemic.
And you touched on something there about working from home, because a number of us are working from home, and, you know, a lot of people in various industries are starting to work from home. What's your setup like, and how is it like to broadcast from home? Like, do you have additional cameras where you're seeing like different angles? Like, do you see the same thing that I'm seeing and we're seeing on TV? Like, how do you broadcast from home?
So for us, we go to a studio, and in the studio we'll have monitors, you know, we'll have access to the pregame stuff, and that part of the broadcasting is even different. But, you know, the other stuff that I do, I have to do it from right here, and that stuff is a bit different because, you know, you're really, I don't know about you guys, but every time I have to go to work in my house, it's something that it's like a monkey, it's a gorilla on my back to get the energy up to look into the camera and be all ready to go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know, and after a while you get used to it, you know, you get the flow and you understand this is our reality. So either you get with it or get off of it. So I think now we're in a situation where I get it and I roll with it, and it's much easier now. But at first it was difficult because, you know, you just wonder if you're conveying the right energy based on people looking at a background like this, you know,
right?
Is everybody believing that I'm talking about basketball still, or they used to seeing me in a suit and a tie in a studio with lights and all this stuff and seeing me there? So, but everybody's adjusted, and it was more in my head than anything else, which is pretty much how my life has gone. More things are in my head than anywhere else.
And again, I hear the theme of adaptability there. Again, it permeates through.
No question about it. And not only now, we're going to have to get used to this for a while to come. Not necessarily the environment in terms of the world, but how this pandemic is going to change things moving forward on a consistent basis. The changes are going to continue to come. So if you can't adapt, it's going to be a tough road ahead.
And being in the media too, what would you say is a common kind of misconception that fans might have about the media and the NBA? Like, could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, everybody thinks I'm taller than I am. I don't know what it is, but maybe because I talk about basketball, people think I'm taller than I am. But I think one of the biggest misconceptions about the media is, I'll speak personally, they think the job is easy. And I say to people all the time, you know, when people say that they can do your job, that means you're doing a great job of what you're doing, because there's more to it than what you see in front of the camera. And I think people tend to think that, oh, you just get up, put a suit on, and you talk about basketball. It's easy life. Don't get me wrong. I'm in the toy department of life when it comes to work. I am not complaining about what I do and how I earn a living. But I will say it's not as easy as people think it is. And that might be the biggest misconception. So, but does that really matter at the end of the day? You know what I mean? Like, they've got to be watching me to think that. So thank you for the eyes.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. So I know we kind of breezed over the Olympics, and you know, I've always been interested about, you know, representing the country, because like I've never done anything like that. You know, I don't know about Roz. She's had a pretty adventurous life, so she might have represented some different countries in the past. When you first got to the locker room and you saw that Team Canada jersey and like you put it on, is there like a feeling, like, is that feeling like of representing your country, is that like a real thing? Like, were there like stars in the background and like harmonious music? Because that's what I might, you know, just think it's like. But what's that about?
First of all, Jordan, I'll get to your question. but I need to hear Roz's multicultural experience right now.
Jordan really likes to say that I have done 1,000 things that I have not done.
Sure. She
nowhere-
graduated high school like at 10 or something like that. She's the genius of the group.
She's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Right. So she's
Awesome.
Uh-huh.
Awesome. I wish I had more brains and athletic skills. So.
The funny thing is that my dad would have probably wanted that. My dad was like a super athlete, and then I'm just here not being athletic in any way.
You made the right decision. Trust me. You made the right call.
I could have been you.
No, listen, nobody wants to be me, Roz. Nobody. Trust me. That's amazing. Good for you, though, Roz. Jordan, back to your question, though. I had been playing in the Ontario provincial programs and the junior national programs and the student national team programs. So I had quite a few experiences prior to getting to the Olympics, to have that moment. I will say this, all the times that I represented the country and on the national team, I believe I played in over 100 games for our country. But in all those moments prior to, as a younger player, getting, more understanding of what it meant to play internationally, the biggest moment, well, one of the biggest moments were when I was playing with the national team in 1999 and we qualified for the Olympics. Mm-hmm. And people don't really understand or talk about that as much as the actual Olympics. But in 1999, we had to qualify in Puerto Rico against Puerto Rico, where it was a tournament of, I believe, 12 or 16 teams in the Americas. And there was only 2 spots that got to go to the Olympics. And the US was taking one of those spots. So everybody else was playing for one spot. We're talking about the Argentinas. We're talking about, the Brazils. We're talking about some major countries that we're playing against. And we were able to qualify and beat Puerto Rico in that game to go to the Olympics. You figure you're in Puerto Rico, 12,000 fans all booing against you, and it's a hostile environment. And here's Canada, this team that figured out a way to win that game to send the country to the Olympics. So that to me was a huge accomplishment for our team and for our country. And I'll tell you what, the moment that at the Olympics that to me stood out the most in terms of getting there wasn't about basketball. It was actually the opening ceremonies. And that opening ceremonies is such a big event. I mean, all the countries are there. It's put on to the hilt in terms of the energy and the resource put into representing the whole world. And I had one of those old school handheld
the video camera
camcorders. Yeah,
the big one on your shoulder.
It was literally, literally about this big. And I'm filming it and I'm, taking it all in because I want it for historical reference. And
of course,
it's amazing. I come back and my mother said she spotted me in all those athletes with my camera looking around and
Really?
Like, that to me was the most amazing off-court thing that, my mother got to see her son at the Olympics. And, she was able to say, when he was a little snotty-nosed kid, we never seen this coming, but here he is,
That's so special.
So, yeah, it was great. But it was, I'll give you guys one example of how big the Olympics was for me. When we lost to France and that was our chance to go to the medal round. Now, we had the second best record in the Olympics at 5-2, but we lost the wrong time in the tournament. So that sent us out of the medal round. And we were walking off the court and there's a picture of me hugging Steve Nash and he's crying as we walk off the court. And we get to the locker room and grown men are flat, just crying and just broken. I mean, you work all this time to get to the Olympics in one game and it ends your medal hopes. And, in 96, we had 2 chances to qualify for the Olympics and we didn't get through. So this was 4 years in the making for us. And, it was tough to be in that locker room and see all these guys that you went to war with for years and it all came to a screeching halt and you don't know when you're going to get a chance to go back. And I got chosen for doping. because they randomly pick people after games and they test everybody. And I was walking to the doping room and it hit me that it was over. And everything, my legs went, I hit the ground. I was sobbing unbelievably. I couldn't get up. My body had given everything in that moment and it was over. And I've only been taken to that point one other time in my life. And when I realized after the fact, because even getting to the doping, doing the test, coming back to, I was in the shower for about an hour and just crying in the shower. And when something takes that much out of you, you realize how much you put into it. And it was a difficult moment for me, but that's how big, getting to the Olympics was for me personally. And I'm sure my other teammates in the locker room have their own personal stories as well.
That's so powerful.
Wow, man. Whew.
Wow.
I got more than I bargained for there, Sherman.
That kind of it hits me deep too. I remember when you're going through all that, when you used to come home and just come to our soccer games or whatever, you know what I mean? Like those things. And now you're telling me all this that happened afterwards. I know you and Bobby went through some of the same things as well. To hear it in depth, like how you just said it.
No, it was real. It was real. And, you got to pick up and move on at some point. But, and I look back and I think to myself, did that make me better or worse? At the end of the day, being taken to that point and being broken to that point, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And I never change it for anything in the world. I mean, I gave what I could, you know what I mean? And I think when I look back and I think about how broken I was, I deserve to be that broken. I earned that right to be that broken. And because I earned it, I needed to accept it and go through it and understand that it's a part of growth. And ultimately, you move on to bigger and hopefully better things.
So that being said, you continue to play, professionally, like overseas. One thing that is common when I hear about, Black athletes going to play overseas is, racism comes up. Did you ever see or experience any racist moments while you were playing overseas?
Oh yeah, all the time. Because this is back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I know, when I went to Lithuania, I didn't have a clue about the country. And one of the beautiful things about playing professionally overseas is I'm probably going to go to countries that I'm not going to pay to go on my own. You know what I mean? No disrespect to these places, but if I'm going to put my money into going places, it's probably not going to be somewhere like Lithuania. So getting a chance to play there to me was great. So you do your research and try to figure out as much about the country as you can. And you realize it's a white country. It's an Eastern European country. There's the potential for a lot of racism, not a little bit, but a lot of racism. And when I got there for about the first month, I experienced it almost daily, and some of it was ignorance in terms of kids and not really, not being aware, or maybe they were, and they were trained to think a certain way. Because as you know, that type of ignorance sometimes is taught at a young age.
Oh yeah. Right from home.
But absolutely. But, you going there and being what I was told, one of 5 Black people in the country. And we all played basketball.
Wow.
That says something. But, with kids, you try to make sure that you talk to them and you speak to them and you show them a different way, because this may be their only opportunity to see a different perspective. And, I got the stares. I got kids coming up to me and touching my skin. And, I got the people looking at me and moving away, adults, that is.
Moving away.
So it was over. Yeah, it was
That is
overt. The
intense.
racism wasn't even covert. It was overt. And, again, I'm coming into their country. So I'm here to do a job. I want to be a part of the community because I'm benefiting from the community. So, I'm going to be in your restaurants. I'm going to be in your grocery stores. I'm going to be at your gas stations. I'm going to be around. So my idea is make it a very positive experience for everybody included. So, after about a month and, they see you play on TV, they realize, that you're helping a team win in that town. And, they get a different perspective of you. And before you know it, people start to come around. Those who speak English now in grocery stores or restaurants are now speaking to me in English, when at first there was none of that happening. And, and then you realize people are all the same. There's people want to understand for the most part. They want to learn for the most part. Don't get me wrong. We all know the section of people that choose to be ignorant and choose to be stubborn and don't want to learn. But people I found in my journeys want to learn and want to understand things. And the more that I was, less concerning for them, the more that I showed them that I was more or less just like them, was the more that I found that they would open up and they gravitate towards me, and they would be more readily available for conversations or interactions that were beyond just a grocery store transaction. But it takes a lot coming from where we come from, Mike. Coming from Malton and understanding that we're scrapping and clawing for whatever we can get, and if you're trying to disrespect us, we're gonna have a problem.
Putting it lightly, we're gonna have a problem.
And we're not gonna be the peacemakers, so you better figure it out at the end of the day. So gladly I've matured by that point. I was able to handle it differently. But in Finland, same thing. Actually, I played in Finland for a racist general manager.
Oh yes, I remember that. I remember.
Because as you know, Mike, Reggie came with me to Finland for a bit of time, and we played, and this manager was no hiding it, just racist, period. And it pissed him off every time he had to pay me. And I loved it.
I hope it was a lot.
It was enough to hurt him, that's for sure.
So the question I now think of is on the flip side, and I think I was asking Mike earlier this week, is playing in the NBA, and predominantly the players are mostly Black, but the owners are predominantly white.
Right.
So I just wanted your thoughts on that, and you kind of transitioning from that story you just shared. Would love your perspective on that, and especially some of the general managers. And I can't remember his name now, but the one that I think a couple of years ago was just blatantly outed for being absolutely racist and made those comments.
Oh, the Clippers owner.
That was the owner, Donald Sterling.
Sterling.
Yeah. I would say this. I mean, racism is everywhere. I would say that the NBA is the most, from what I understand and what I've experienced, the most progressive of the major four sports leagues in terms of identifying, dealing with, and rectifying any signs of racism. And we've seen a huge push over the last, say, year based on what's happened in terms of the racial injustices. Mm-hmm. So to your question, yes, 80% of the players are Black in the NBA. The majority of ownership isn't. To me, that's still something that has concerns for me. You think about the Raptors, I mean, we have a Black president in terms of Masai Ujiri, which is a great sign, and it's something that, as we can see in the organization, his desire to empower women and to empower minorities has been one of those things that has been a priority in terms of what they feel makes organization great. I think what's happening now, though, is that most organizations can't hide it anymore. They can't kind of tuck it away and push it to the side and kind of inundate it with corporate talk anymore. The idea that equality is coming is something that in the NBA, because of guys like LeBron James, who has such a huge platform and is so dominant, when he speaks, everybody in the league listens and everybody in pro sports listens. And I think because of that, owners have had to act accordingly. Just recently, I don't know if you all heard of Mark Cuban's desire to not play the American national anthem at games. Yeah. That's a huge, huge step for a white owner to take in America.
Especially in Texas.
Absolutely. Yeah. He faced a lot of backlash for that, but that wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Now, Mark Cuban has always been a guy who's gone against the norm and kind of spoken his mind and he's a billionaire, so he doesn't mind paying the fines that go along with it. But ultimately, that's an overt, blatant sign of, okay, enough is enough. This is not something that needs to be tolerated. So I think we're seeing more of that. And Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, has done a great job at really enforcing the fact that we are going to be an organization that opens up to equality. We don't tolerate racism. And we're going to be very vigilant against any signs of it. And I think that's something that the NBA has done a great job of. So yes, the majority of ownership is white, but I think that the idea of equality is much more forced and much more spoken about in the NBA than any other sport. And it's still not where it needs to be, but it's gradually getting there in my estimation.
No, that's great to hear, because a lot of organizations, I think this year, as a result of everything that's been happening, have been pushing for that diversity inclusion training, but it's no longer just a check and completion. It's
Right.
at the forefront of conversation. It's at the forefront of, hey, what are we actually doing to impact change, and openly have a dialogue about it, and let's get uncomfortable. So that's what I'm seeing the shift in. So it's great to kind of have that accountability also be there, start to be there.
Absolutely. And you made a great point, because it used to be just a statement. You know what I mean? It used to be something that was said, and then nobody bothered to follow up and to continue to push the issue. Well, now that can't happen. Everybody's under the microscope. You know, if you say it, people are going to find out whether or not you're backing it up. And that's something that has forced, I think, people to act in a certain way with consistency and with persistence. And if they don't, they're going to be called out on it. And that's something in terms of an image hit that people do not want to take at this point. So whether it's for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, the needle's going to move forward, because they can't afford to be called out on something as serious as this consistently, because it just puts a black eye on the organization.
And I saw even in the WNBA, like the Atlanta Dream owner, that senator, I think her last name's Loeffler, she basically got pushed out of owning the team by the players. And I'm like, when would that have ever happened?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, the WNBA, I don't know if they get enough credit for the amount of change that they have made in terms of social injustices and the ability to create impact, you know, on the ground level. We all know this. The bigger names and the bigger celebrities, they do their part, use their platform. But you need soldiers that are on the ground, that are constantly grinding. And the WNBA does an amazing job in terms of pushing their agendas. And as you said, you got an owner ousted. That's unbelievable. You know what I mean? That's the power. That's the true essence of the power of the people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Wow, that's huge.
So Sherm, you know, you've just been absolutely incredible. I only have some light questions left. So, you know, I was wondering, can you still dunk?
No, I haven't dunked in, wow. Let's not talk about it. No.
Okay. Can you beat your daughters at basketball?
Always.
Always. So you don't let them win ever?
Never.
Okay.
That's never going to be the, he's never going to say anything else other than always.
Oh, never. I don't let my kids win. Never. If they beat me, they beat me, but I'm not going to let them win.
Mm-hmm.
So do they beat you?
No. No. And if they ever get to the point where they can beat me,
You
just
stop playing.
before they do, I either get hurt or retire.
Yeah. See, I retired.
Smart. But your son is a baller. Like, he can play. Like,
Yeah, he
he's
thinks so.
legit.
He's-
He can play. I know he can play.
Uh-huh.
My daughters don't really play, so I
Mhm.
win.
Yeah.
And Sherm, if you were going to be what animal would you be?
Great question. So I have a few. I'm going to be like a hybrid. I'd be a hybrid of a lion, a cheetah, and a gorilla.
Wow,
Oh, those are good.
gorilla. Well, yeah,
I like that. I'm gonna take that.
Yeah.
You know, I just love this answer, this question and answer. Is he came prepared? He's been thinking about his spirit animal.
It's funny because I get into those YouTube or Facebook tunnels where I'm just going down a rabbit hole of videos. Before I know it, 3 hours have gone by, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
Just the other day, I was looking at these animal videos, and I was looking at animals that could beat a lion. And you'd be amazed at the kind of animals that could beat a lion. And I saw a gorilla pick a lion up and just drop him on his head. And I was like, yeah, you're a part of me now.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say, in head-to-head combat, I would think that a lion could get a gorilla, like could easily beat up a gorilla, but pick it up? Wow.
Yeah, picked up, but a gorilla's abnormally strong. And the lion attacked and kind of rolled him, and he just got to his feet, picked him up, and boom, and ended the conversation.
That sounds like when you get on Ruby's bad side, she'll.
All I know is, sure.
Oh, there you go with the finger spiral again. You gotta watch out, Sherm. You gotta watch Ruby with this finger. If she gets this thing going, it's a lethal weapon. We gotta tell her to holster it sometimes.
Okay, good to know.
All I was gonna say is I know what my spiraling out of control YouTube is gonna look like today. It's gonna start with gorilla beating up lions, and it's gonna probably gonna end up with like kittens like landing on roofs or something.
Yeah. Just make sure it's violent.
Oh man. Well, Sherm, you have just been incredible. I can't thank you enough for your time today. Uncle Mike, I know, has some words as well.
Now there was one thing. There's one more thing, and I was talking to Ruby and Roz about this on Friday, and the test questions, the trivia quiz.
Oh yes, the trivia.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Do it. So it's gonna be Mike versus Sherman.
Oh wow! This is like WrestleMania and Malton all over again, right?
Massive. This is Westwood Morningstar.
Take it back. Let's take it back.
I don't know what it's on, so I don't have any pre existence to these questions. So I'm just like you. I'm seeing it fresh.
That's typical Morningstar talk right there.
he always
it is true.
Morningstar would always beat them.
Mike has been Googling trivia answers since Friday, so don't even.
I believe it.
I really wish that I had some like Malton trivia, because I feel like that would be pretty amazing, and you both would probably just know all of the answers and every single person personally. But we have Olympics trivia, and it is Olympics in general.
Oh, okay, this isn't gonna be good.
This is gonna be. Can we call a friend?
Yeah.
We should have named that animal.
Yeah.
That would have been good. We'll have to do that next time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first question. In which Olympics were NBA basketball players allowed to compete for the first time?
Buzz.
92.
Okay, well, Sherman got to answer first. So
but I hit buzz. He didn't buzz.
Oh, well,
He cheated.
when did we announce buzzing?
Yeah. I'm telling you, this is a morning.
It was etiquette. I was using etiquette. I can't use etiquette with this guy.
Oh my God. Okay, so 92 is the right answer. Before that, only amateurs and players from professional leagues other than the NBA were allowed to play.
That's correct.
Okay, and when did women's basketball make its Olympic debut?
Ooh.
Want to get options?
Yeah. Let's have some options.
Okay.
And if you have to answer, you have to put your hand up just to even it out.
Oh, nah, just yell it out.
Okay, well.
Okay. A, 1960, B, 1988, C, 1996, or D, 1976?
1998. 1988, I mean.
96.
1976?
I'm going to say 76, and I'm not even.
Oh, 96? Okay, Ruby, you're saying 1976?
I said
Okay,
88.
Ruby gets a point technically. I guess now it's a three-way game.
She put her finger up though. I didn't see it.
It froze you.
It was 1976, and as of 2016, the women's team has won 7 Olympic gold medals.
The
I guess that would be the U.S.
Canadian?
Yeah.
U.S.
Oh, the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah. They've
Yes.
dominated.
I know
Yeah,
some girls
definitely.
that play on that team too.
Oh, okay. An Olympic gold medal is made of mostly what metal?
Nickel.
I wouldn't know. I never got one. Way to rub it in, Rod.
Yeah, Roz.
I was gonna say gold, but I was thinking
feel
that's
bad
too
for
easy.
asking it now. It's not nickel. It's not gold. The other
Yeah.
options are copper or silver.
Copper.
Copper, yeah.
Wrong.
Silver.
Oh,
Silver.
I told you it was
It gets
The
another
medals are
points.
made out of silver?
And it's gold plated.
That is so whack. I thought you actually got a solid gold medal. Like
That'd
they
be really
played it?
expensive.
Oh, that takes away from it. I thought it was all gold.
Yeah, I don't want one now. I'm glad I didn't get one.
Yeah. Me neither.
What, you
I'm
wanna
glad
throw
I
it
never
away
played.
Yeah. Throw it into Lake
So
Ontario.
The last solid gold one was awarded in 1912, and so since then
wow.
they're like 92% silver.
92%. Oh wow. Okay.
You can't even call that really a gold medal.
Mhm.
Okay, last question. What Black Olympian has been credited with single-handedly crushing Hitler's myth of Aryan supremacy? You want the option for the name?
Jesse.
Oh, he got
Jesse
it.
Owen.
Yeah.
He got that immediately.
Okay. Oh,
Uh-huh.
now it's a tie. We're gonna have to get
Is
another
it?
question. Yeah.
Wait,
Ruby has
wait.
2, and you have 2.
Oh,
Mike,
the
you're out of the running.
non-finger
Yeah.
thing.
I was playing golf scores.
Mike's not even in it.
I was playing golf scores, so yeah.
Wait, did Ruby
Make this
have
question
any
worth
idea
5
what the
then.
questions were?
No,
did
no
not.
one knew.
Why do I feel like the outsider here? I don't know about this.
Buddy, I'm in the dark too about these questions.
You meet,
Yeah, but you're not
obviously I
answering
am.
anything. That makes sense.
Okay,
The thing
fair.
I'm secretly very competitive. I probably couldn't even keep my mouth shut right now, even if I wasn't in the game, and I clearly couldn't.
And the funny
Awesome.
thing is that on the last interview that we had with Paul Jones, Ruby won the basketball trivia.
Why don't you do
Against
basketball with me? I would have had a chance.
Oh God, I'm sorry. We'll have to do that next time. This is what I have now.
I hear you. By the way, I only cared about one Olympics. That was the one I was.
Oh God. Okay, this is the last one then. Approximately how many countries compete in the Olympics? A, 50, B, 400, C, 100, or D, 200?
Approximately
Yeah.
50.
100.
50 is wrong. 100 is also wrong. So it's 400 or
200.
400.
There's no way there's 400.
So
There's no
you say
400
two?
countries
It's
out there.
200. Yeah, it's 200.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I guess you both win.
You're still tied.
That's
I feel honored to be tied right now.
Ruby's undefeated in trivia. She's like
Wow.
queen now. Yeah.
Listen,
Wow.
I was duped. I thought I was competing against Mike, which I clearly dominated. And then this Ruby person jumps in and just kind of just throws everything out of whack.
The old
I didn't know I was
switcheroo.
getting double teamed.
Hey, I just tried to be nice to our guests that come in, and I don't want to embarrass them or anything. So
I'm just saying, when I get double teamed, I pass the ball. I had no one to pass it.
Mike called for help.
Well, it's
done.
like you and Ruby got gold and Mike got like a silver.
It's really silver. Well, don't try to lie to us now, Rob.
Oh,
It's
okay.
yeah.
See the
Yeah.
Olympics the same way again now. that you mentioned
Silver,
that.
gold plated.
2%.
For technically diverse medals, we actually do like gold. It's only verbal, but it is like 100% gold.
I'm glad you qualified that because I was saying you lie with a straight face.
Yeah.
It's a gold star.
That was good. That was good. I'm still gonna look ask my brother about for pictures of you,
Oh,
and then I'll post that for your winnings.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. As long as Ruby gets the same kind of treatment, get a picture from way back that embarrasses her as well.
Well, let's not even go there.
We've been
Have a whole
on
episode on Ruby's and her mysterious kind of past.
There's no mystery.
She's a
I need
law
to see
student
that.
from Australia, so she has a bunch of stuff out there down under.
Wait, you took law in Australia?
I did. So
There's
you know what? I'll
gotta be-
share.
Oh, and actually, now, tell
I
me where
will
you
share. I'm in India right now. I'm in New Delhi
Nice.
because my fiance lives in Bombay, and so for COVID, we haven't seen each other for a year and 3 months, and we were supposed to get married. So now
Ooh.
I'm here. Essential travel to
Yeah,
India.
Ruby, why do your eyebrows keep moving like that? There's something real
Like how?
suspicious. They just keep, up
I'm
and
just
down. There's
happy and
something-
excited and very
okay.
expressive.
Okay.
Let the woman live, Jordan.
Hey.
This is great, man. This is great.
Yeah, this is
Awesome.
absolutely awesome, Sherm.
No, thank you.
You're a class act, man. Wow.
Mhm.
Thank you. No, it's great. This was a lot of fun, and I'm glad we got to connect and do this. This was great. You guys are doing a great job, and you'll continue to grow. It'll be
Yeah.
beautiful.
Definitely.
Oh, thanks a lot.
I appreciate
Thank you for being a part of our
Wow.
journey. So
Mhm.
I love
My
it.
pleasure. I'm
Yeah.
honored.
Great
Thank
meeting you.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, buddy.
Okay.
Welcome to life.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for
Yeah.
giving me. Thank you for giving me bragging rights.
Again.
More. I think we needed more.
Yeah.
The only
Keep it
reason
on
I
that
say
side
that
of the
is
water.
the only reason
Go
I
back
say
in with
that.
bragging rights.
The only reason I say that is these guys roast me for not having that much knowledge around basketball, which I don't.
Well, you
But-
were the one
You
calling
self-admitted.
three-man basketball. You'll never live that down.
And she made the women's basketball team for school somehow. So
Yeah.
Somehow.
In Malton. She
In
was
Malton.
in Malton too.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, you're from
Yeah.
Malta?
She
I went to Malton from Brandon Gate in grade 4 and 5, and then Darcel grade 6 and 7.
Really?
Yeah, I was
Mhm.
on the grade 7 and 6 girls basketball team. I have no idea why
she's
or
a
how,
bit younger than you. So
Yeah.
and I
Gotta be.
can't. I
That's
can't
your
recall,
area.
but yeah.
Yeah, Darcel's my hood
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
But you didn't go to high school in Malton.
No, I didn't go to. I went to Brampton and Mississauga, Gordon Gray, and Chinguacousy. I was
You went to what school in Brampton?
Chinguacousy, and then I went to Gordon Gray and Mississauga. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Damn.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm
Chinguacousy
sorry.
took too much licks. And it's done.
Yeah. Yeah, they did actually. Yeah.
Yeah, way too much. Awesome.
Uh-huh.
Good stuff.
Cool. And again, hey, I appreciate your taking your time and talking to me, about doing all this stuff as well. Your advice is really taken good.
No, it's great. I really appreciate you all having me, and
Mhm.
you're building something good. Keep it up, everybody. Keep it up.
Working on it, Juice Man.
Awesome.
All right, man.
All right.
Cool.
Alrighty, Sherm. Have a great day, my
Okay.
friend. Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody.
All right.
Okay,
Talk to you.
bye.
Bye. Bye.
This has been the Technically Diverse podcast. Remember to hit subscribe on whichever app you prefer to get your podcasts. You can also connect with us on various social platforms. On Twitter, you can follow us at TechnicallyD. On Instagram, you can follow us at Technically Diverse. Or if you prefer to watch, subscribe to our YouTube channel that shares the same name, Technically Diverse. We also love getting feedback and ideas, so if there's anything you'd like to see, you can send us an email to technicallydiverse@gmail.com.